Not over.
Hey, everybody. It's another Wednesday, and you're back with Indie Comics Relay. I'm your host, Keith Gleason, creator of the Mighty Mascots. With me, as always, my good friend I haven't seen in a while, Mr. John C., creator of Sartana and Surrounded by Death. What's up, buddy?
What's up, man? It's Wednesday, so you know what that means. We're back at it again.
Yeah, dude. We had like a rare break there last week. We're almost back on schedule.
We call it a rare break, but it's like that was our normal schedule. It was bi-weekly, right?
Right. And now we got I think we have a guest next week, so we already ruined that. So
that's okay. I wouldn't say it ruined as much as we're enriching indie comics a little bit more than normal, right?
Exactly.
And that's okay. But I'll tell you, man, I needed that week off because I've got so many comic projects in the pipeline that's like keeping up is a little bit tough, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Before we start talking about, let's say hi to some people in the chat. We got Roland with us tonight. What's up, buddy? We got Ara as always. What's up, Ara?
What's up, Ara?
Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us. What do you say? Oh, two of my favorite people, Indie Comics Relay. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks,
miss seeing you at shows. That's for damn sure, you know. So hopefully that'll change at the second half of this year. We'll see. But anyways, yeah, Johnny, you were mentioning some Kickstarters we wanted to highlight at the beginning of the show tonight before we bring our guest in. Let's see, you told me about this one. Let me bring it in.
Yeah, Off into the sunset. So
this is like an anthology for Westerns, huh?
Absolutely. Yep. So it's an anthology for Westerns. They're very, very close to their goal. We're coming down to the wire here.
Oh, wow. Now, are you involved in this one? Do you have a story in there?
Unfortunately, I'm not. I was just so tied up that I couldn't commit to this. But I really, really wanted to be a part of it. I'm, in a kind of a group chat with a lot of the creators that are involved with this book. It's just so cool. There's so many cool Western stories in there. I love Westerns, given, I've produced Sartana comics. And this project is just cool. Can we roll the video?
Yeah. Is it long? Let me see. Hopefully.
No, it's just 1 minute.
Perfect.
This whole anthology is curated by Brent Harshman. So big shout out to Brent.
Okay.
Big shout out to Jeff Ryder, people involved with it.
All right. Yeah, let's take a look.
If you haven't gotten the joke by now.
I feel like I'm looking at a typewriter. Yeah. Awesome. I like it, dude. I like it. So it's an anthology, huh?
It is an anthology. That video is just a really fun joke that Brent has on the page. But if you scroll down, you can see some of the artwork
let's
that's
take
inside.
A look. Oh wow! Okay,
Beautiful.
Yeah, this is legit.
Artwork.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, cool! I like it's like a space western. That's
well it's a variety
stories,
of different
right?
westerns. So some are space, sci-fi. Western's kind of just the central theme, right?
Yeah, I love when they do stuff like that. Yeah, this looks cool, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how many did it say somewhere how many stories are in here or
I'm not too sure.
Okay. Yeah, I mean we'll have anyone that's into westerns definitely check this out. This looks really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Just go to Kickstarter, look for Off Into the Sunset or search for Brent Harshman. Again, I know a lot of the creators who participated in this book. It looks really cool from the Kickstarter page. I definitely recommend it.
So just saw it. 120 page anthology.
That's pretty beefy for a book.
Yeah,
if you think
that's
about
really
it.
good, actually. Yeah. It's funny that you're promoting like a Western one because the one I'm promoting is a Western as well. Kaijus and Cowboys.
That is awesome. Now sign me up for that. That's really awesome. No, I was just gonna say it's funny when I released Sartana issue 1, like there was no Western comics out there.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like making a little bit of a comeback.
Yeah, I know. And now's the time for Sartana to strike again, I guess.
Yeah. Now I'm sort of involved in this one.
Are you lettering or?
I did well. If there's even lettering in it, like I was given like 8 pages, and I think I put one word balloon in the whole thing. I mean, I could kind of, but the one claim to fame here is that I did their logo, so the logo is here somewhere. But this is Frankie B. Washington, who I've worked with in the past, and he's been doing a lot of stuff for Alterna lately, and Matt Blair, who's done a few things with Alterna as well. But I love it. It's a great idea, like cowboys and kaijus, and they just hit their goal. So
nice. Yeah, this looks awesome.
Yeah, this looks really cool. I think the design of the character is really neat. I don't know if they have the logo here anywhere, but anyways, I designed the logo, and I think if it goes beyond more issues, I think I may have more to do. But it's basically a kind of like a silent Western in a lot of sense,
Yeah.
Where it's a lot of sound effects, but Frankie draws most of them. So I guess I'm barely part of it, But the
hey, credit's a credit, man.
Credit's a credit, right? This book is picked up. Have you heard of that new publisher, Second Sight? I think they're called. It's a new indie publisher called Second Sight Publishing, and this book's already been picked up by it, so that's kind of cool,
Cool, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how long the trailer is, but I don't want to waste too much time with Kickstarters. But I just wanted to point it out there. So speaking of interesting comic projects, let me remove us. Go back here to. So the guy that is our guest tonight, Jason, reached out to me a while ago. Like this is how far back we're backlogged with guests and stuff. I think we schedule months ago.
In advance, yeah.
I mean, he had a Kickstarter going, and the Kickstarter's already ended, and I think he's almost close to printing the book and everything. But the book's really interesting. I had a chance to read number 1 today, and did you have a chance to look at it at all, or were you too busy?
Yeah, I read issue 1, and I liked it a lot, and I have a couple of things.
Thoughts. Yeah, me too.
Thoughts about inspirations, and I'm wondering, where he may have pulled from. So,
yeah, definitely. So without further ado, let's welcome Jason Lenox to the show. Jason,
hey,
greetings, man. Love the Clockwork Orange poster in the background.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
I had no idea I did a full 22-page hand-inked Western in 2013.
Oh, really?
And, I should re-roll it back out and put it in Brent Hillisham's anthology and just find all new readers for it. It's just done sitting in a folder.
Why not, dude? I find if you have stuff from your past, there's always more readers that'll discover it, As long as it's not
no,
horribly dated or anything, you're probably good,
It was weird. It was a Western based around San Quentin Prison in California, and it was actually reviewed by prisoners at the prison in their prison newspaper.
Really?
Wow, that's interesting.
It was an ultra-violent one-shot Western set in 1850. And
wow.
I did it. It was like one of the last things I hand inked the whole thing. It took forever to make. And I'm like, man, why don't I re-rolling this out? You guys are like, Westerns are in. And I'm like, I should re-roll my Western out. I don't know how many people actually read it. You know what I mean? So I got to find Brent with 2 T's, right?
Yeah, why not?
T's.
Yeah, definitely. I'm getting like an echo from stuff. Is that you, Johnny? Getting an echo?
Could be.
I don't know if I. Hello.
Is it me?
Hello.
Me? I don't know. I don't hear an echo.
Wait, hang on. Let me mute some. Let me try muting Johnny. Hello. Say something, Jason.
Hello.
Yeah, I think it is you.
It is me. All right. Yeah. Well, you can mute me for now. Let me find a solution.
You're the problem. You're the problem, right? It's weird. You're like, which way do I point?
Troublemaker. What can I say? I'm a troublemaker. Hold on.
The world of Zoom. It's like it's. If I point at you, I point at Keith. I'm like,
right. Well, if you want to, Johnny, if you want to drop out and see if you can figure it out in the meantime. So, Jason. So one of the things we always ask our guests up at the front of the show is, we want to find out about your origins, like what put you on the path to, making comics and illustrating. Yeah. Was there a comic or toy or TV show or something when you were a kid that, put you in this, I got to be part of this, whole industry,
The first comic book that I really remember reading, and I know there was some kind of random barbershop Archies, and I know my mom had gotten me a couple comics as a kid that were like Marvel books. But the first comic that I remember that I read, and I still have it, is Gru the Wanderer, which was in the early 80s was coming out from Marvel's Epic imprint.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids at the time were probably reading like Amazing Spider-Man. I was the kid reading Gru. The guy has like a blue VHS tape in his chest and 2 samurai swords. Sergio Aragonés is one of those like master cartoonist types that pounded a ridiculous amount of detail into everything. He got famous for doing the weird Mad Magazine margin, which Mad Magazine's gone now. So kids today don't have the joy of finding comics the size of a postage stamp in the margins of their favorite movie parody.
I used to love that. I used to scour the Mad Magazine pages looking for those.
But it's all gone. It's weird. I'm 46, and like so many of that stuff's like, there's no Mad. So you're like, oh. So
I guess they do. I think they do like one shots here and there, but nothing crazy anymore.
Dude, I remember my mom would buy me Mad at the grocery store. I would get all jonesed up in like 5th grade. She'd roll in with like the big brown paper bags and be like, "Here's your issue of Mad Magazine where they make fun of, Die Hard or whatever, right?"
Yeah.
And I really remember reading Gru. I think Gru's an amazing book. There was
it's coming back. There's a new mini series coming out
with Gru.
Yeah, believe it or not, wow. I just saw it. I usually do my comic orders like a couple months ahead, and I think Dark Horse might be putting it out. I think it's another mini series.
Yeah, he Gru. I mean, Gru had so many homes, but eventually he kind of bounced into Dark Horse. Which I think is a good place for a property like Gru, But origin definitely. Story, probably reading Gru, and I remember getting it at the Walden Books at Park City near Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is a gigantic mall. So I remember going to the Walden Books at the east door of the mall to get Gru off a big spinner rack next to like romance novels.
That's awesome. I remember getting comics from Walden Books as well. So that's good times,
Yeah.
So now that you're since Gru is your favorite, which is kind of fun, did you want to draw that way, or were you looking to what was your goal? Did you want to become a comic artist, or?
I remember as a kid in the 80s, my parents got me this big thick Disney book. I remember thinking working for Disney as an animator would be like some kind of dream job. I remember I loved Dragon's Lair, which was Don Bluth that had worked for Disney and quit.
Yeah.
And went off and did his own things. But I remember thinking, like, working for Disney as an animator was some like huge mental goal of mine as a kid. I don't know if they even employ any actual animators at this point that actually would do like hand drawing,
like hand-drawn stuff.
Yeah, like they're like the margins in Gru. There ain't no margins anymore, because I don't know what was the last hand animated film Disney did. The Princess and the Frog, maybe. I'm not.
Yeah, and I think that was sort of an experiment, right? To see if.
It was like, look at this new gimmick, 2D animation. So, I remember I wanted to do that. I loved Gru. It was never my style. I remember the first comic book that I think really, fit kind of a personal style for me was the March 1989 issue of Heavy Metal Magazine, which I remember hearing about that comic as a kid. And then I remember I got one at a bookstore, like kind of secret, because there's adult material and like violence and nudity in it. And that was a really good issue. Still own it. And I must have read that thing front to back a ton of times. And the artist that really blew my mind in that was Juan Jimenez, who unfortunately passed away last year of COVID, which was awful. And if you don't know who he is, he was a transcendently talented, fine artist that he liked to draw, comic book stuff. That's what he did. So he had a prodigious amount of talent, and he knocked out some incredible European comic books, a lot of weird science fiction, time travel. He worked with Jodorowsky on Meta Barons, but I remember reading his story in that issue. It was called Leo Roa, A Sexual Misadventure in Space. And it was like it was like very European, like kind of sexy, but like really amazing, like design, vehicle, spaceship action with like occasionally nude women tossed into the mix. And but the guy was so damn good that I remember just seeing it and thinking like, this is, to me, reading that, I would have been 13 perhaps at the time. It was mind blowing to read that, to kind of have that as someone that you're like, this guy, whatever this guy's got going on, this is what I kind of want to, this is what I want to make. And
right.
And it stuck with me. I mean, like I said, all these years later, I could still think of the issue, the date, and the stories that were in that issue. But if you like Heavy Metal Magazine, the March 89 issue, hands down, there's a lot of crappy issues of Heavy Metal, but I stumbled into a really good one. Luckily. Good for me.
Yeah. Johnny, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say that the way you describe it in that era and seeing those, that book and that art in that time frame kind of reminds me of being a kid, being exposed to some of that early anime from the 80s, like Cobra Space Pirate.
Yeah, I remember
very
that.
European, you know what I mean? Like, gratuitous nudity was all like part of the thing, Yeah,
it's like you're watching something that you shouldn't be watching.
And that's kind of part of the vibe of it. Yeah, totally.
The great thing about Heavy Metal, though, is like Walden Books used to just sell it with the comic stuff and never even notice that it was like adult stuff.
I remember they had it near the Playboys. Like I think they were kind of acknowledging there was some content, so it was like on a higher shelf. Kind of view things like, we were kind of laughing in the pre-show, like, we as a country have a huge hang up with like, here's a nipple, and like we'll lose our minds because we, woman nipple bad, and we just oh my God, like what now?
And I hate to get on a tangent, but like you can't even like draw like sexy comic women anymore. It's like crazy. Like you know what I mean? It's like I don't know where things are heading, but I'm glad I know a lot of people that still do it. That just was like, I don't give a shit, So,
I think my biggest complaint with nudity is there's been a lot of really clunky nudity in the last couple of years that I've seen that people are getting all jonesed up about, and I'm always like, I don't know, like if we're gonna get jonesed up over nudity, let's get jonesed up over like Milo Manara. Like that guy could knock down nudes that are mind blowing.
Roland said when I remember when I was 10 and my uncle played the 1989 Devilman OVA.
So
Roland
brings up a good point. So in the late 80s, early 90s was a weird time because in Japan they were cutting loose tons of money to fund really weird projects. So right now in 2021, there's a lot of re-releases of some of those films that were kind of these oddball big budget OVAs. So one that I just got a couple months ago, it came out in March on Blu-ray, was Cyber City 08, which I think came out in like 1993.
Oh yeah,
and it was hyper violent, short, sexy. So like, I just got Midnight Eye Goku late last year on Blu-ray or DVD, and like there was like old VHS interviews on there with the guys that made it, chain smoking, laughing about the violence, laughing about the nudity. They had women in bikinis just dancing during this kind of like this crappy tracking VHS interview. And if you look at anime now, it seems very youth oriented, very not misogynist, very inclusive. So it's almost even weird kind of watching these almost like dinosaurs of anime, where these were like the big hitters, again, 30 some years ago, that it was like chain smoking, strippers, like in Midnight Eye. One of the most there's a woman with motorcycle handlebars on her shoulder and like a midget riding around shooting lasers. And I don't think the modern stuff coming out from like Funimation or Cartoon Network would do, like, they would not do that.
So it wouldn't go near it today.
No, so there's a level now. And
I want to go back and live in that era,
Yeah, so you go back, and again, right now it's crazy. Like Venus Wars just got re-released on Blu-ray last month. I mean, the Venus Wars was a big budget late 80s like movie that's really like this militaristic future fantasy film. They're not making stuff like that. So the late 80s, early 90s, and heavy metal was part of that for me, was like these ultra violent anime. I remember my mom complained as a kid. She took me to see Transformers the movie when I was 11 in '86. And when Megatron shot or killed Prime, I stood up and cheered. Like I wanted, if she was embarrassed, she said parents were like giving her the stink eye, but I wanted violence in my cartoons. And like, if you watch the regular stuff, it was very piecemeal. Like, is he going to do it? And Transformers, the movie, was huge because it was like the writers were told, wipe out the old characters because we got new toys for next year. So they just slaughtered all the characters. And I remember seeing it. I remember my mom being upset at me. But that film is violent, and it was like that was like, oh my god, like I want to see.
You bring up a great point too, because I found comics for that exact reason too, because comics, even like the mainstream ones, like Spider-Man, like I remember reading one, and like one of the side characters got killed in the issue I read, and I was like, whoa, you don't ever see that in the cartoon, like. So there was like a little bit of sense of like, they were a little adult, or you wouldn't, even like those mainstream ones, they were kind of they weren't written, even though they were all ages, they were still written like at a level that you could enjoy them. Even like stuff like Batman the animated series, once in a while.
Batman the animated series. I mean, all these things. I mean, what we're getting at is like, I think you want things pushed a little bit in your taste, and so when you're a little kid from our, maybe you don't need to see ultra violence, but you're always looking for the next fix. So, I mean, if I think back to like all the things that I liked with entertainment, it's always about finding the next thing. So I remember as a young kid,
I remember when Venom tortured MJ in her first appearance. Yeah, perfect example. Like,
I remember watching like Speed Racer and Battle of the Planets as a small child, and then it was like I found Robotech, and like Robotech was like
Robotech there was death all the time.
Yeah, and then
very
it was
adult storyline,
And then it was Transformers the movie and Heavy Metal the movie, and then it was finding Heavy Metal the magazine, and then it was discovering things like Akira, Bubblegum Crisis.
Right.
It was like
there was next level of like adult animation kind of.
Yeah. In comics too, and obviously, it's always changing and evolving. Which kind of goes back to you guys are making comics, I make comics, and I think I'll kind of tie it into what we're all doing now. Look at me, I'm like big picture. It's is that when you're making a comic, I think kind of the fun part is that you see all the things that are there, big and small, popular, or maybe not as popular, and you think, well, what is the story that you want to tell? And I think one of the things, for better or for worse, with where we are today is that the printing technology enables, small time people to do high-end quality print runs for PDFs electronically. And through the magic of crowdfunding, which I've been involved with now for over 10 years of like Kickstarters and stuff,
Yeah,
is like
future, man.
It has enabled, everyone to say, I have an idea. And, if you think back to when we're talking about with Gru the Wanderer, comics were very much monopolized by very few people because, the technology and the money and the connectivity was like you had your two major publishers. I mean, you had, in the 80s, and you had a sprinkle of here's Dark Horse, and then, random Janes and Joes. At best, it was, well, we'll go to the copy machine and, copy stuff and staple it. And the quality of that was poor.
Yeah.
If you could even find it. And, there was no real way to communicate to say, hey, I have an idea. Is there a fan base for this? Let me connect with that kid.
It was so hard to print something back then, like you really had to understand how printing worked back then.
Or have a lot of money to work with an offset printer.
Right. And like nowadays, you can get as little as one copy printed, through like a digital press or something.
For Lords of the Cosmos 4, I just had artist proofs made. I got seven books made for $30. It was
right. Yeah. It's totally,
which, okay, it's a couple bucks more, but it was like a print run of 7 books.
Right. But then, like, to get to your point, like, anyone can do it now, you have the option. Right. All you have to do is kind of, be slightly knowledgeable with Photoshop, I think, or you don't even have to pay somebody to do it now for you.
Well, and so here's the thing, like, so
files.
So if you've always liked westerns, right? Like Johnny says he likes westerns, so maybe he thinks he has the best western idea, and it's in his head. So he can decide to take it out to the world, and he can write it, he can draw it, he can do both, he can work with other people, and he can print it. Its success can be determined by the public, where they can say, we like it or we don't like it, right? Now, we hope they like it, but like, here's the thing. He's now no longer stopped. He can roll his idea. And if you have a bad idea or a good idea, you're free to take it out, which to me is, on one hand, there's so much out now that I think it can be overwhelming to even be like comics. And it's just, I mean, when my last comic was on Kickstarter, I saw a figure, I don't remember where, but it was like on this day, there are 483 comics crowdfunding right now.
Wow.
Like, just they could be new, old, like in their Kickstarter cycle. But I was like, that is a tremendous amount of material to fight for attention. So it's definitely.
It's just getting worse too, Jason. Go ahead, Johnny.
I was just going to say, like, take that concept, Jason, right now, that figure on Kickstarter for new independent comics. Now imagine that as if it was back in the day you're walking through a bookstore.
Correct.
It's almost unheard of. You can't even imagine walking through a place with that many indie books. And if you go think back to indie books then of that era, like, there was a certain kind of small circle of them that you kind of were aware of. And then there was the ones like the zines, the ones that kind of had the put together homemade charm,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, go ahead, Keith. I interrupted. I apologize.
No, I was just going to say, like, because the big two are kind of tanking now, and the numbers are going down. I've been reading reports that, it's funny, like you were talking about the anime, all these old ones are kind of coming out and there's an audience for it. The same thing's happening with comics right now. Is a lot of people aren't going for the new stuff, but the back issue sales are starting to go up now.
Well, here's my take on why the big two are hurting. Is that I like chew gum. You guys probably do too. You put a stick of gum in your mouth, you chew it, it's great, loses flavor, you throw it out. And I think what's happened is, and again, from watching this stuff my entire life, is that I think what's happened is that people that are creative, right, are no longer giving those companies new ideas. Because if you're like a high-end talent, right?
Yeah, you're not giving your best stuff.
You like right now, and I forget the guy's name, but he's ridiculously talented. There's a guy doing Beta Ray Bill for Marvel, and I can't think of his name, but he's ridiculous. I'm horrible. I can't remember his name.
Yeah,
he's stupid talented in a nice way.
Yeah.
He's working on Beta Ray Bill. If you're that guy and you have like some like next level idea, do you be like, hey, you know what? Here's a new amazing Venom like villain for Beta Ray Bill, and give it to these corporate paymasters and they rip him off, right?
Yeah, right. No way.
Or does he work on their stuff and say, hey, here's your same old characters you've had for 30, 40, 50 years. blah, 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 right? And then he keeps his idea, and then he runs with that on his own. So, like, if you think back to, like, you mentioned, the comment from the fans mentioned Venom.
Yeah.
Venom was an idea that Todd McFarlane basically gave to Marvel.
Yeah.
Do you think today he would do that? Absolutely not, which is why he left to start Image.
Not.
So I think the big two are kind of hamstrung because they have their stable of, hey, we all know Spidey and Cap and Superman and whatnot. But I think at this point, like, the characters need the talent, right? And the characters have name recognition, but I think what's happened is that the higher end creatives, yes, that Daniel Warren Johnson, yes, thank you, Amy's Birdhouse, is that why would you give them a great? You'd keep it yourself, and you if you had that much cachet, you would say, hey, Image, hey, whatever. So I think they're almost at a thing where it's just like they have the same stuff. And then I think what happens is like, if you look at Spider-Man, right? My thought of Spider-Man is he's like a fun kid fighting crime. Well, how many crime fighting stories can you tell with this guy? It's like, how many times can he stop, the robber at the bank? And I remember the other year, people were losing their SHIT about Captain America being a Nazi. And I remember laughing about it thinking, yeah, they're running out of ideas. Yeah. I mean, like people were offended by it.
Radical.
I felt bad because I thought these guys have literally there's no more ideas. So it's like, I don't know, like maybe make him a Nazi because they haven't done it, or it's what if we make Thor a lady now? And some people are offended. I'm just like, they are literally, it's just like, because imagine being a writer and saying, here's a Cap idea. We've already done, we did it. We've done everything.
Right. Most of these guys, like you said, aren't bringing their best stuff to the table.
No, heck no, they're not. And they shouldn't.
I feel like that also comes in a cycle, too, because I think back to even being a kid reading, like, the end of the milking of the Infinity storyline, the Infinity Crusade or whatever. And it's like, how do we do this? Okay, let's just make evil counterparts to all the characters and pit them against each other. You know what I mean? Like, it's like...
So I think, and again, like, one of the reasons that I made Lords of the Cosmos is it was something that I didn't see, and I had an idea, and it was something that I wanted to tell. So like, hey, I'm going to do my own weird aesthetic and my own weird stuff because no one's making it, and I'm going to make it myself, And I think it's become so democratized that now, and look, I love my Spidey, I love my Superman, I love my classics. But here's the thing to me, I've got long box after long box of all those characters where it's like, I no longer feel the need to go buy the new Hulk, Thor, or Spider-Man or Bat because I have so damn much where I'm just like, I don't know how many more Batman stories can I physically read, and you're just kind of like, I've done it. And like, it's no knock on the stuff that the people are doing now because I think to a new reader, it's probably exciting because it's fresh if you're 14, but I'm 46 where I'm like, I can't just keep reading. Wow, is Spider-Man going to foil Vulture again? I got like it's just so I think totally the big two I think they're in kind of a bizarre situation. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Johnny.
No, I was just going to say that I think a lot of the creative drive for independence is rooted in just that. It's like we want to kind of tell a different kind of story, or we don't want the same thing kind of regurgitated back at us over and over again. So I think a lot of, I know my personal motivation is like, I want to tell a story my way that I don't see told anywhere else. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. And that's because you're creative, Sergeant Slaughter. Well, Harry, I don't know. I mean, let's just. I'm sorry. Harry, you got me there,
us tonight, Johnny. I'm honored.
Bless his heart. Jason's. Thank you, Mr. Stavetti from Alterna, right? Well, I still believe they all have amazing ideas, right? But maybe I'm wrong. I'm being generous, but I just think there's so many good ideas that are out there, and like I said, to me, I think there's just been a shift. Right? I think my belief is, maybe I'll disagree with Peter, is that I think that just a lot of these guys, if they have a great idea, I think they're going to hoard it because why would I give it to Marvel? Because they're going to take it. And like I saw something the other day. And then let's talk about our stuff because I hate talking about all this stuff in the news. I forget who it was. He was one of, and again, another Amy's Birdhouse, fill in the name. He was one of the guys from Marvel that created Bucky, right?
Ed Brubaker,
and the guy was like, dude, I was in this movie as like a cameo at a hot dog stand for like 30 seconds. and he's getting more like in his SAG payments than he got for making up the character with the movie.
Well, you know, I could, when he talked about, I follow his newsletter, and he talked about that a little bit, and you know how he didn't really get a dime from like creating the Winter Soldier and all this stuff. And, yeah, it's funny because I work in the corporate world a lot, and I know the CEO of Marvel was said, well, you didn't create anything new. That's still Bucky. We created that. You know, I can totally see them doing that. You know,
of course.
I mean?
Well, of course. So the thing is like if I'm,
like,
you know, again,
that's just a costume change.
We'll go back to Daniel Warren, right? He's crushing it on Beta Ray Bill. If he's got some bang up idea, why the hell would he give it to them? I mean, if I was his counsel, I would be like, keep it, use their stuff. Use their things.
Because it's not even just Marvel now; it's Disney you have to deal with. You know, like, you know, so that's even worse.
These guys are pre-writing the movies, basically, right? Like, you know, when Hickman comes, you know, I mean, when X-Men come to the MCU, it's going to be Hickman, right?
And that's even sad. Look at this, Jim Starlin makes more.
Warlord, man, I remember reading Warlord. I got it at a coffee shop in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, with my uncle.
Well, you want to know something even depressing? I heard if you know, like. Graham Nolan, who created Bane, when Dark Knight Rises came out, the third Batman, he said he got enough money, about the equivalent to buy like a used car. Like,
here's a sandwich.
I mean, Bane's the main guy in that.
Thanks for our $1 billion franchise. Here's a sandwich and a $20
here's a sandwich
gift card at Target.
We should pivot to creator-owned before we all depress ourselves.
And Pete's right too. Like, editorial's obsession with crossover events really strangles the ability to grow characters and relationships organically. Self-contained issues would really help inject new life. Yeah.
Peter just went like full college professor on us. Like I feel like I need to take notes. My God.
Pete's the head of Alterna.
Yeah. So let me tell you my little Lords of the Cosmos story, because it kind of ties into this. I did a comic book signing at a store in York, Pennsylvania. I'm like Pennsylvania name checking all over the place, right? But I did a signing at this store in like 2014, and they had with some of my little independent anthology books I was making, and where I had a Western in it. And anyway, I was at the store, and as a comic book nerd, they had books and I had cash. So I saw the DC had put out a new Masters of the Universe book, and I was like, oh, wow, cool. So I bought it. Yeah. And I got it home, and I sat on my couch, and I was all gung-ho to read it. And I thought it was terrible. I hated it. It actually made me angry, and I started reaching out to friends of mine, and I was like, I hate this book. It makes me angry. And they're like, you need to calm down about this book. It's, a book. And I kept getting angry and angry about this book, because I always thought the Masters of the Universe were just a really cool set of characters. I really enjoyed the 2002 cartoon that was done for like a season and a half. Yeah, it was really good. And I just think they're strong character designs. It's kind of a fun kid thing. And I remember thinking, if I could work on or on Masters of the Universe, I would never let this thing go out, because it sucks. And I put it on my desk, and it just enraged me to no end. So I found myself at work doodling little like comic book characters, kind of like in that vein. And I was at a client's project, and this guy at his house had all this Robotech, he had all this 80s stuff. And I said to him, I said, what do you do, pal? And he said, I write, and I write all the time, and I love 80s stuff. And I said, I have this idea. Could we like brainstorm? Maybe we could do a comic book together, because you live locally. And he said, can we bring in my buddy? And the first guy's name was Jason Palmatier. And he said, let's bring in my friend Dennis. He writes for TVs and movies in Los Angeles, but he's from our hometown. Let's talk, because he's a big 80s nerd. So we just kind of sat down around 2015 on a conference call and just started just talking about if we did our own genre piece, right? And we kind of looked at Masters of the Universe from a point of view to say it's not really the Masters that you like per se. It's more like Westerns, right? Where it's like, you could say, man, I love Fistful of Dollars. I love A Few Dollars More, right? So Johnny obviously likes that stuff. So he's like, I'm going to tell my own Western, and that Western could be, Pale Rider. It could be Unforgiven. It could be 3:10 and Yuma. There's a million Westerns you can tell. There's tropes, the train, the cowboy, the lone gunman, some kind of Indian action. Like, there's those things that you say, okay, that's a Western, it's in the Western United States, whatever. So we started saying, like, well, what is He-Man? What is Masters? So we started writing down some of the things that it was. And we realized that it was a genre that we kind of said, this is like sci-fi barbarians. So we started saying, okay, Masters of the Universe, Thundar the Barbarian, the Filmation Flash Gordon and the old 30s Sunday.
Yeah.
Brave Star. We started saying, okay, there's a whole kind of subgenre of this stuff. So you know what? We actually took out a thesaurus and we wrote Masters of the Universe, and we crossed out Masters and we crossed out Universe, and we said Lords, Cosmos, because they were synonyms. So we had a name, and that was it. And then those two guys started taking all the tropes. Like there's a main villain, and he kind of seems to have like these sorts of henchmen, and they built it out like a pyramid, and then they literally just wrote a paragraph about each one. So then I took like 4 months and I just drew all these pinups, right, of just like all these creatures. And then it was like, okay, so now we have 12 pages of just like these creatures, and that's all we have. And so we said, well, so now what? And then I just said, I'll just start making stuff up. And I just started kind of doing these just odd sequential pages to go with it. And then they said, well, why don't we give you some story, because you're just like kind of just shooting off into the dark. And I was like, yeah, this is really pointless. And then we started having a ton of other ideas. And then these two kept saying, well, we got to have you do this, and we got to have you do that. And I started saying, you know, I only got 2 of these, you know, and I got 1 kid now, and I got another kid on the way. I don't have time to do all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? It's really going to, you know, screw this project up, because you guys have all these great ideas, because Jason and Dennis they're smart guys. And I said, you know what? Maybe we need to bring in other people and go anthology, but not anthology where everyone just says, do what you want, like a managed anthology. Maybe
yeah, like you set up like a sort of like a series Bible.
Yeah, kind of like... So it's not so the direction it went was kind of like 2000 AD, where it was like, okay, this is going to be a Lords of the Cosmos anthology book, and you got to let your characters go to let other people play with them. Now, I'll be honest with you, the first issue we did was kind of, in retrospect, there's things that I would have done differently. We didn't have that much of a plan, but what I liked about that issue was that it gave us a taste of that format and working as a team. So here's the thing, that book's a little rough.
I thought it was pretty good. I thought you guys did a good job, especially in the first storyline, which I think is the one you worked on mostly, right?
We're working on it.
Just like setting up the world, like you know, and kind of like one thing I would have done different is the pages of the character introduction. I would have tried to like maybe pad that out a little bit.
I actually loved that. I thought that was great.
You know what was funny? It just kept going. Like I just kept reading. I was like, "Wait, is this still going?" It was.
So here's
the
it was
great.
Part of
I like the different designs. You know,
issue 5 is the other half of that. It's the hero version. Here's
okay.
This is what happened. I had all these pinups, and I was just like, we have to use these things in the book.
Gotcha.
And I'm like,
so that's how you did it. Okay.
So the villain ones are all facing one direction, and the hero ones are facing the other.
Oh, okay.
And it's just taken me. And those were the first 12 pages that I made, right? And at this point, I've now drawn.
I can see where you wouldn't want to waste them because
and here's the thing. So even you read that, it's like there's a lot of this, and I'm like, okay, because I have them all in this gigantic folder. I'm like, like the big main story is like this. What it's morphed into is this gigantic introduction that leads to a big blowout fight.
Okay.
In like issue 6, right? And so what's happened is that's like this main path. And then all these side stories have been the place where we've been like juking and experimenting and bringing in different writers and different artists. And like, that's been like the experimental pace where the main story is just like, here is Lords of the Cosmos. And we're just kind of walking you through from like A to Z. So like all those characters in the first one, when you get issue 5, when we do that next year, like all the heroes roll in where they get their big ridiculous, like, okay, here's their pinups. And if you're thinking like 80s cartoons, those pinups is like the big, like, oh my God, here's this guy. Oh my God, here's this monster. Where it is like kind of odd and over the top of like, here they are, here's their logo. So I think when we hit that point, you'll be like, I'm glad you took 5 years to get to this payoff. I agree with you. In retrospect, probably not handled the best way, but at the time it was like, this is what we have.
Well, now that I know the thought behind it, it makes more sense. Like,
yes.
But Johnny, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say real quick. I mean, I do appreciate you're gracious enough to send us some preview copies to read. And in reading issue 1, I'm flipping through and go, I wonder if he likes Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
Because it's
just
like
the first thing I thought of when all the characters are coming in. I'm like, this is heavily inspired by Masters of the Universe.
Flavors
it was
there.
Good.
Yeah, the flavor's there for sure. And I love the you're basically paying homage in my eyes to that kind of style in the 80s. And, you know, even reading issue one, I was kind of thrown back to being a kid, you know, kind of reading the back of the action figure packs and kind of getting thrown into the mythology of the characters. And I love that you're doing that and you're putting it into your comic here.
Yeah, definitely.
Now to Roland's point there, it's funny because I met a young guy named Eric Adi at Wizard World Philadelphia in 2014, and he was making little one-off hand sculptures. And I said to him, if I ever need you to make a toy, would you do that? And he was like, I got your back. Every issue of Lords of the Cosmos has a toy in the back where he does a custom one-off.
I saw that. I was going to ask you about that.
And
Very
my buddy Keith, who's a professional photographer, Keith Crick in New York City, photographs each of these toys, and then we send them to my friend Jared Brown, who I think you guys know, right? And then Jared, who has done toy packaging for clients, he designs like these fake toy boxes for the back, right?
Oh, cool.
So you're kind of like, okay, like, is there a toy? So like Lords of the Cosmos 4, and when you guys get that, it really starts to go off the rails because there's a letters page, and we actually we asked the fans to write in letters, and the fans literally conspired and wrote this insane. We've got 4 letters that are just nuts, where like the fans are going nuts complaining about the Lords of the Cosmos live action movie failure in the 90s and their animated feature in 87, and how they got pissed that a big unnamed comic book publisher ran it into the ground by 2002. And like, so there's this level of like breaking the fourth wall. We actually had an artist make a Saturday morning cartoon advertisement for the Lords of the Cosmos Saturday morning cartoon. There's another toy in the back of issue 4. And like I said, it's funny, Keith, hearing you give, you know, like, it's a little heavy. Dude, I agree. I wish we would have done it differently. But again, you know, it's one of those things. It's like you roll with it. There's a bigger idea. Trust me, issue 5, you'll say there's a lot of pinups in this one too. But again, the main story is kind of a to Z, like introduction to the world. We're through it. Here's a conflict. Here's these characters. And then the side stories.
Almost do like take them all and maybe even do like one of those, like, remember those like those Marvel Universe books?
Yeah,
where they would do a character page. That would be kind of cool since you guys created so many characters.
We
got there and do all their stats and everything. You know,
we got hammered by an artist that we brought on that said, "This is confusing. I can't tell how big all these guys are." And then we brought in a guy from Europe that does like character models, and he did all the main Lords of the Cosmos characters. In issue 3, there's like a scale chart of like how big they are. So, you know, it's like I said, to me, Lords of the Cosmos just keeps getting better. Issue 4 is light years better than from issue 1. It keeps getting better.
It just gets better, definitely.
Yeah. So like
the more
I said,
you do it, yeah.
Yeah. So to me, a lot of people like issue 1. I'm like, I know, like I've read it a million times, and you hear the critiques, and like I said, I get why it had some things that, like I said, you're trying something new, quirky. It comes out of the gate a little bit odd, but you know, like I said, I think each issue has gotten progressively better. I had some really whacked out ideas, and a friend of mine, Brendan Hikes in Pittsburgh, we had connected last Saturday for like 2.5 hours. He writes scripts, and I said, I had 3 more short story ideas. I was like, I got to get a writer grinding on this.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like I need to go a million years into the past to bring one character in the future. I need to go to, you know, world of fantasy and myth. I have a crazy origin story for the main villain that's been in my head for like 2 years. So like at this time, we have 6 different short stories being either written, drawn, or completed for the next 2 issues. Awesome. Spotlighting big characters, small characters. Some of the side stories play into the main story. We've got these 3 scripts that I gave to Brendan the other day to keep stuff rolling. I've been doing a page a week for the last 2 months for issue 5 and 6. Oh, wow. I've got about 10 more pages, and then those will both be completely done. So my plan is to launch 2 issues in 2022 to kind of speed it up a little bit. But
nice. When are you going to do that? Like, what's your plans for the Kickstarter?
Well, my hope is to get issue 4 out into all the backers by the end of summer, right?
Okay.
And then I'm going to do my satanic coloring book project this fall for Halloween. And then my plan is next March, April, Lords of the Cosmos 5, and then next fall, Lords of the Cosmos 6. It's just like I said, we've got a ton of stuff that's done. And like I said, each issue, we've gotten more backers, more money. The quality of the book has improved. And then I think the overall project, like, so one of the things you guys probably noticed, there's like little callbacks, like see this and see that, which is another thing we started doing. So now in like issue 4, like I think there's like there's 9 callbacks to either stuff that doesn't exist, stuff in that issue, or stuff in or that's become like
It's
more
like
and more and more.
Awesome.
You know, where it's like just trying to make
You're
Lords of the
building a
Cosmos
universe, basically building like this like crazy universe, you know.
Yeah,
and I have a kinship with you because like me too, like my comic, The Mighty Mascots, totally inspired by Saturday morning cartoons, you know, action figures, sitting in front of a TV with a bowl of cereal. Like that's where my comic comes from. So it's like I understand like you want to create, you know, like the drive to create something new, and then but also pay back to that kind of, you know, the stuff you grew up with. You know,
it was funny. I had a reviewer, or it was a podcast or something. The guy said, you know, all you're missing is the main hero raising a sword and
yeah, right. You almost have to like you have to have a transformation scene.
I was like, well, you haven't gotten issue 5 yet. You know, I'm like, well, of course we haven't had that because that's one of the tropes, right? It's like like I was saying, you got to have these things be Western. I'm like, yeah, of course the main guys, but what he does with his sword isn't necessarily transformation. You know,
but
so
yeah, it's something
but of course that has to happen. And like I said, when these guys said that, I was teasing them. I was like, yeah, working on it. That's done. You know, but you know, again, you'd say this is very similar to Masters of the Universe, and it's like, yeah, good. You know, that was the whole point, was to take that, to put our crazy aesthetic and our weird foibles. So like one of the things that I think is one of the weirdest things in the world is Warhammer 40K. I admire it because of its large insanity, but I view it as pop culture heroin. It's like people that get into it, it's just like kiss your life and your money goodbye.
Yes. Oh, dude, it's funny you say that. I went to a convention that was just those, and I tried to set up and sell my comic. No way.
Yeah,
like no one wanted anything to do with my comic, and there was rooms filled with like
they're heroin addicts. They don't care.
With all of that stuff, it was nuts.
One of my best friends paints those, and I remember at one point in his apartment walking in, and his kitchen table was just completely overrun with the miniatures.
Oh yeah.
Hold on, Harry's asking a question. Are you a Doctor Who fan? So I loved Doctor Who when I was a kid, and I watched it on PBS, and I was really into the 4th Doctor, and that was about it. I didn't
Which
like
one was that? Which one was that?
That was Tom Baker.
Tom Baker, yeah. My wife loves Tom Baker too.
And I didn't like Peter Davison a whole lot, and then the show kind of went out of my life. And I know he's become popular in recent years, and kind of a tie to Doctor Who and Lords of the Cosmos. So like I like hyper detailed, weird, militaristic science fiction combat stuff. And there was a guy that made a little 2-minute anime that was like a Doctor Who anime where it was like violence, hardcore action, super detailed, really annoying levels of like tech. And to me, that was Doctor Who. And this was maybe around 2013. And I made a series of 6 Doctor Who prints that I tried to make like really militaristic. Like the Cybermen is an actual military unit. The Daleks in some kind of war action. I don't sell them on Etsy because they're copyrighted. But they're just things I sell at shows. But to me, that was cool. And then people, oh man, you got to watch the Doctor. The new show is great. The new show is great. I tried to watch it and I fell asleep. I was like, this isn't what I'm into. So like, one of the things we tried to bring the Lords of the Cosmos is that level of hyper annoying, like militaristic detail that like, that wasn't the direction of Masters of the Universe, but it's my direction and the writers were.
Right. So you're kind of building on what they, what it was, and trying to do your own thing.
There's a guy called Luton that does this insane Warhammer 40K show on YouTube that I watch because it's safe, because I don't have to buy anything to watch it. Right. So Roland knows what I'm talking about. And like Luton does these shows where he talks about like the economy of the Imperium. And this guy's like dead serious with these 2-hour like you draw while you listen to it. And I'm like, this guy is out of his goddamn mind, because I'm like, he's taking this, like he's like really serious about stuff that doesn't exist. And so like example in Lords of the Cosmos issue 4, you know, we have a short story called Hunger, which is like this big crazy origin story for one of the characters. And it starts off with 3 characters on a hill, and it's like their military unit and then their ranks and like all this stuff. And like, that's the kind of weird, stupid detail that I like. And, you know, that weird, that's the kind of stuff if I was 12, I would have obsessed on in like some Doctor Who role-playing game source book from FASA, you know, and that's the stuff that I did. So, you know, you can have that in your thing to give that kind of like weird, hyper detailed, like a little bit more violent, a little bit more kind of like, I loved Outer Limits because it was always a dark, depressing show. Try to have, there's a lot of like dark in Lords of the Cosmos. That Masters of the Universe had more of an upbeat tone. Kind of like a little downbeat, a little kind of like militaristic, depressing, you know.
Yeah, I
was just going to say, just in listening to you describe it a little bit, it kind of reminds me how sometimes something that pays an homage hits the mark closer to what it is than, say, like a remake. And like, if I could maybe give an example, like the Star Trek movie reboots, like kind of missed the mark of what Star Trek is. But then you have a show like The Orville on Fox, which is very blatantly an homage to Star Trek, but like nails Star Trek better than an actual Star Trek thing.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways, like Lords of the Cosmos, you took the kind of Masters of the Universe thing, paid homage to it, but you almost kind of like made it cooler. Because like even in the 80s and 90s, that like hyper violent, you know, anti-heroes were like the coolest thing in the world. Like you took a lot of that flavor and you applied it to Masters of the Universe where it wasn't there before. Correct. Or maybe it was very close with, like you said, with that 2002 series.
So like, you know, again, to kind of touch on what you said, like what if the guys that made like Cyber City 080 made Masters of the Universe without editorial control? And you know, they would have Tila cutting Trapjaw in half.
Right. Yeah,
like,
right.
You know, 16-year-old Jason would have been like, like that would have been like, oh my God, this is blowing my mind. So like, why did I like Dragon's Lair? Going back to that, I love the quality of Disney films, but I could give two SHITS, try not to swear, about two cats singing about a meatball. But you know what? Don Bluth was like, here's like the Disney quality type, and we're gonna have a guy getting cut in half. And you're like,
yeah, right,
okay,
yeah.
Like,
I love Dragon's Lair. So
quality,
you're talking about a freak right here.
but I don't want the stupid like song and dance. So I mean, I think for me, it's like Masters of the Universe 2002 was just about right for me. And obviously, they're legal characters. We can't do a Masters of the Universe comic, but it's like, so we've got, you know, when Eric's been sculpting these toys and he saw this model sheet, he says to me, dude, he goes, I just noticed that your characters, you have so many that are like person size, like action figures. And then he goes, you have some that are vehicle size, and each team has like one giant size base character. And he was like, you know, when I was a kid, I remember thinking there was like the toys you could get with mom on a weekend at Kmart. And he goes, and then there was like birthday toys and Christmas toys. And you'd get that Sears catalog and you'd see the scale stuff. And he's like, it's like you guys did that. I'm like, yeah, it's because we did. I know exactly what you're talking. And he was like, oh my God. He goes, you guys. I'm like, of course we did. Why do you think the characters are 3 different sizes? And the most of them are the smaller, cheap ones. And there's a couple that are medium. And then there's one that's big. And he was just like, oh my God. He goes,
you're already speaking like a merchandiser, you know? Which
yeah.
is
And he
great,
goes, you know? You have done this like a toy. And I was like, it was funny because he's building some of this stuff for us, you know? And like to see him have that moment where I'm like, exactly. Right. And you know, so to me, that's what we're trying to build. And again, on issue 1, I think some people like one person was like, the cover's so plain in the main cover. It's just the one character with the back background. But I always envisioned we'd have like so many of these that you'd stack them together like a huge trading card set.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, you keep like kind of like the cover dressed the same, which is cool. And
so each issue has a main cover, or now 2 main covers, like a Here in a Villain, where it's like they're trading cards. And we actually had a fan take all the covers and like put them all together. I was like, well, you got 6 of these things. It's like a big set. So I'm like, again, like Lords of the Cosmos, if you just read issue 1, it's kind of like part of a house where you're like, there's just a door here doing nothing.
Yeah.
But by the time we get to build the whole house, I hope that issue becomes better as part of a whole, as like one whole thing. You know,
well,
which again,
I'll pay you this compliment that I really enjoyed it enough that, you know, I'm gonna go back and read 2 and 3, however many you gave us. I think you gave us 3 or 4. Yeah, you gave us 3. So I'm definitely gonna read 2 and 3 on you know on my own time for like leisure entertainment, and so I liked it enough, you know, to keep going, which is awesome, you know.
Well, and here's
I definitely get it. It goes to me as far as a kid, you know, like. This is the kind of stuff I was looking for when I was a kid too, you know?
And here's the thing, I got you guys in the list. When 4 comes out, I'll flip you a PDF, and you can check that out too. You know,
Come back on the show for it too, man. I'm actually looking forward to your next Kickstarter, because given how much attention to detail you pay to this project and how close it pays to kind of an homage to Masters of the Universe, I'd love to see what you cook up for like reward tiers and things like that for a campaign. You know.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I try to make this stuff fun. I try to run professional campaigns. My goal is to run things on time, great communication, that like if you back my projects, I try to take care of you. I've seen too many people that are pissed off at like crap experiences where, you know, they're not taken care of. They feel wrong. You know, you see some of these projects, don't need to name names. A lot of people know what they are, where there's just so many negative comments and people just feeling like they gave a creator money and they feel like crap.
And then
the
creator ran away with it, or whatever the hell happened. Yeah,
lies to him or treats him poorly. So, you know, I try to give you a great product. I try to bring great talented people. I make sure that all the people that work for me get paid, and I try to make sure that we treat every single fan with whether they get, you know, a little tiny tier or a lot of stuff, that everyone just feels that like I got the best experience I can get. Full spoiler, I've been in commercial sales and management for like 24 years now. So like I manage millions of dollars of sales every year at work. So I try to bring that professional, like commercial sales.
You have to.
I try to bring it to
market yourself.
Yeah, I try to bring it to the world of like independent underground comics to treat those customers like they're, you know, $500,000 customers. Like treat everyone like they're a great customer, right? And they'll always come back.
Yeah, and I come from a customer service background, so I get that, and I do the same thing. Whether you see me at conventions or, you know, you see me on my Twitter feed, I have a great time just talking comics and talking about my comic, talking about other people's stuff, you know, and then, you know, if you want misery, just look anywhere else on Twitter. You can get your misery anywhere, you know.
Twitter can be a miserable place. I'll be honest. To me, it's not real miserable because I just try to have fun, and I don't know, my page is typically just a lot of fun. I don't try to get into the big fights. Customer service is key. I like Amy's Birdhouse. It could be
that's my wife.
She's smart.
She's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, who's this intelligent bird speaking the truth to us? But
right.
but
we all do, Harry, unfortunately. But one thing I was going to ask you, so you kickstarted all 4 issues, correct?
Yeah,
are you seeing like this? The one thing I'm starting to see with crowdfunding, and why I think it's going to be the future of the industry, is you're starting to see, like, you do one issue, right? You build up that readership because it's direct to the person. You know that issue is going to somebody. It's not going to a store. Correct. It's not on the shelf. Are you seeing growth between the Kickstarters? Like, did you make more in the second one and more in the third one and more in the fourth one? Are you seeing that reader growth?
So from issue 1 to 2, there was growth. From issue 2 to 3, there was more backers, but the dollar stayed the same. And then issue 4 was a quantum leap. It was the most backers in dollars I'd ever had in a project. It was like 263 backers.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now I think there's a couple things.
You know what's funny about that, Jason? It's like you think about comics now, like when you know the old system, just going to the store and getting a comic now. It's the polar opposite. You have a huge number 1. But then the rest of the issues start going down and down and down.
Yeah.
We're seeing the reverse of that on Kickstarters and crowdfunding, you know?
And I'll tell you why I think that is that I remember when Superman died in, what was it, 92? And I remember my friend Joe's mother, literally I saw her at their house like the week that went down, and she goes, I went out to the store and I got 3 of them for the kids' future for like money. And I remember thinking, like, what? Like, this is a woman that had never before or after mentioned a comic book. DC craps out 7 million books. And it's a good book, but it's like they crapped out like whatever, 3 million, 6, I don't even know, millions of this book. And this woman was like, oh my God, like I have to get one for this future money. And like, I think there was so much of a mentality of like people seeing old collectibles that were like old being like a number 1 with like a number 1 Amazing Spider-Man with real money, right?
Yeah.
And then almost thing all number ones. And I think the publishers got smart and almost realized there was this like kind of like ignorant herd mentality that number one was important. So I do question that a lot of these massive number one sales from, you know, the 90s were just like my friend's mom times a million being like,
well, there's
God.
a lot to be said for that. You know, Johnny, I thought if I told you about like Joe St. Pierre, who does his own book there, the Zodiac, he told me the same thing. Like, you know, he came up with a mini series, and in each issue, he introduced a new character, and he said, I would have made more money and got better distribution if I did each issue as a new number one rather than doing a full mini series.
Yeah,
which is just insane. I mean, you can't do. That's why you can't grow in the way the mainstream is now. You know,
I think there's also an oversight in the way people, you know, before books with great value are somewhat rarefied, right? And that's kind of part of it. And I think people had that oversight. They just thought, oh, number ones are, you know, valuable and rare, and it's not. That's not necessarily the case. The ones are overprinted and abundant. Yeah.
And Keith, you know, it's funny. And here's the thing. I give you credit because as much as I talk about this stuff, I had never made that connection. So that's going to stick with me. Thank you. I pointed at Johnny. I'm not pointing at
about what? Piece, but what connection?
The whole thing about it's reverse. And you know what you know what I think it is? I think the model that we're in now with Kickstarters and independent people doing their own thing, what we're more like is a rock band from the 70s, where you look in it, like I love like Van Halen,
right?
If you look at those bands, they didn't have like, it was like, here's your first album. And they would grow because they would tour, right? They would do live appearances, put out albums. So if you look at all those bands' trajectories, they're like this, where it's like you start small and grow, versus versus that Bizarro model you're talking about. Like Van Halen 1 sold 5 million copies, and then by the time they got to For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, they sold 10,000. You'd be like, what? Like that makes no sense, because the old school rock band model makes sense because it's like, you get out in your ass and you play shows. And if you do well, people are going to say, I like that band. I want to get his or her, you know, album or LP or tape, date myself. And you know what? I want to see them again because they did a banging live show and it was great. And they rocked out and I got a shirt and blah, 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 blah. And I think really the model we're in now is like that. And that's incredibly insightful because it never occurred to me that we're at an opposite. That's huge, dude. That's a huge insight. Thank you, Keith.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, definitely. I think it's the future, honestly, from what I'm seeing. Go ahead, Johnny. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I saw that a lot before pre-COVID, right? Because I'd travel around to do shows, and I'd see people that would have the repeat customers show after show. Perfect example would be Jay Moore up in Saratoga. He's there twice a year, so he's got his repeat customers, and over time, it's only grown bigger and bigger, right? Because he's been consistent, and he's putting out the work, and he's been there over and over, and he's traveling. He's getting his work out there, and that's exactly it. It's the kind of the rock star model, and those people who kind of like do that. Russell Nolte, another one. He, he's a publisher, but also creates his own work. But you can only do so much online. He actually gets out there and he, kind of shakes hands, or was shaking hands and putting books in people's hands directly. And there's something to be said about that, having that personal interaction when you leave a show with material from the author directly. Yeah.
Well, even this, right? So I'll tell you why I reached out to you guys, because I think it's an important part of the story. So one of the things that I did for my fourth Kickstarter was I realized that I needed to spend more time doing podcasts. So I did a ton during my last Kickstarter, right? So I was asking friends, and I think Jared gave me your name. And what had happened was I kept reaching out to people during it. And in your case, you guys were like, hey, we can't have you on until May. And my attitude was this, and I kind of felt goofy doing it during the Kickstarter. I was like, how many of us are just doing these appearances during a Kickstarter? And I think when you do an appearance during a Kickstarter, it's very salesy.
It's expected. Yeah.
Well, and it's like, hey guys, back my stuff, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And I thought, and so for guys like you and some other ones that I reached out to, like, hey, we can't have you on until later, as opposed to being like, oh, well, I don't want to be on your thing because I just want to sit here and hawk my stuff, right?
Yeah, right.
I was like, you know what? I want to have appearances where there's no pressure. Appearances like this are great because you know what we're not doing? Buy my stuff. I'm at $2,000. Can you get me to 20? And look, I get it. I've done it. You guys have done it. But that does get a little tiresome and salesy, where it's just like, sometimes it's good just to say like, hey, Jason, tell us why you like Brew.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Jason thinks that comic book artists have great ideas. Peter Simeti thinks that they don't. I think that stuff's great.
Speaking of Gru, this is a kind of a good wraparound, but the Gru comic that's coming out is even cooler than I thought. Look at this. Gru meets Tarzan.
I
don't even know what to say about that.
That is awesome.
But look, it's like realistic Tarzan and then cartoon Gru.
I may have to get that. That's nuts, dude.
I know. I might have to get this too. I mean,
that kind of reminds you of like Archie meets Punisher, right?
Yeah, right. I might have to get that from Dark Horse. That's probably going to be a lot of fun. But anyways.
But my personal promise I made to myself was I was like, I don't want to be that guy that's only on these things during an event, which I'm still going to do that. But I was like, you know what? I need to take more time and be like a more of a virtual man around town. And here's the thing. Having these things, it's great to let people hear us, but part of it's building positive relationships with guys like you that are out here doing this, because guys like me need guys like you to help spread a message. Especially in a more pandemic era, but to not just be shill guy where it's like, oh, I'm not trying to sell something right this minute. I don't want to be in your damn show. And it's just like, no, I want to be on stuff when I'm not selling stuff to just have these. This is a cool conversation.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And like the reason we started this show, I mean, we started it as a shill show. I mean, me and Johnny were looking to, always push our books and stuff, but it's turned into kind of a fun indie creator spotlight / talk show. And it's, we sometimes we'll sit here the whole episode and go through a creator's campaign, but we try to ask engaging questions and try to do it more than it's just a sales pitch. We try to get everybody to kind of know the creator that's on with us, and we have fun conversations and random offshoots and things like that. That's what it's all about, right, Johnny?
It's also the creator themselves, right? Some people are just so straightforward and they're so logical and by the book about what they create. It's just like when you try to talk to them on a personal level, it's like pulling teeth, right? And then you have somebody who can just converse, and that's I like to call a personality creator. So not only like are they the creative type where they can craft a story, but they can actually converse and engage as well. Correct.
But you being in sales, like that's like a key part of it, and like and I think all creators have to be part-time social media now. It's the only way to stand out,
we should do the share. I have art that we talked about.
Yeah, let's take a look. Because we're kind of like over an hour, but I've been kind of letting it go because we're in some good area here. But this would be a good way to kind of wrap things up and start kind of heading towards the finish line here. So definitely share your screen, and I'll. All right, perfect. Once I see it pop up here, I'll give you control. You see the share screen option there?
Yeah, I'm on the entire screen and I hit share.
Okay. It didn't pop up. Hang on. There we go. All right. There you go. Now you have full control.
Awesome.
So this is the newest thing can you guys see that?
Yeah. Zoom in a little bit.
Yeah.
If you can at the top.
So, man, hitting the wrong buttons.
You're showing us like all the good stuff.
So I did this for a band called Dead Animal Assembly Plant. This is going to be their new band logo.
What's the name of the band? Dead Assembly Plant?
Dead Animal Assembly Plant. They're very much like White Zombie and old school Marilyn Manson, and I'm a fan of their work, and we developed. I can
take the name.
We've had a great conversation back and forth for a while, and I said, you got to hire me to work for you, and they said, yeah, we really dig what you do. Would you make us a new logo? So is that an album? Is that an album cover, or is that going to be a shirt or something? I think it's going to be their stage. I think it's going to be on merch. I don't know if it'll be in an album, but I think this will be on T-shirts, stickers, posters, band merch.
Awesome.
Yeah,
so that's great. Awesome. That gives me the vibe of like Iron Maiden or some of those when they Megadeth when they used to do the painted old school
metal.
stuff.
Yeah.
So their whole thing is like they're like the slaughterhouse. So there's like bone saws and there's like meat hooks and meat cleavers.
Love it.
Love the cleavers. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So let's see what's next here. Hold on. Oh, so there we go. So this is a piece from my upcoming satanic coloring book. That is a huge black and white of Babylon from the Bible, who to me is kind of a very satanic Bible character. This is her 7-headed cat.
Nice.
right?
Nice.
So you'll be able to color her in the big coloring book. She's going to be a big 2-page spread in my coloring book. But
very cool.
Yeah, but that was a tough creature to design, to figure out how something has 7 heads and 10 horns.
And
it was a
was
weird.
This a real creature, like like in the satanic kind of?
So in the Bible, if you remember Sunday school, this is a creature and a character that is in the book of Revelation. So this is a very, I just thought it was really, she's considered the mother of abominations and the whore of the world. So, I thought she was kind of satanic.
I think you nailed it.
Yeah. You made her nice and thick too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I actually worked with a model in Los Angeles on this project. So that is based on a real woman, and her handle in the adult world is Goddess Nyx.
Okay.
So she'll help us promote the project, which is always exciting.
Nice. So now this coloring book, how many pages is going to be?
So there's going to be 2 of them. I had so much satanic art. There's going to be a adults only volume, which is called Rituals, where there's going to be a lot of nudity and crazy stuff in it. And then there's going to be a kid-friendly one called Volume 2, Animals. That's like satanic kittens and mice and stuff. So it's exciting.
Cool. Awesome. Gotta get everybody, right?
Yeah, we got your whole satanic family. So this is the next one. This is a huge. This is my version of fan art. So this is my gigantic. Oh my God! It's 34 by 34 inches. It's huge. This is fan art based on Niccolo Machiavelli's book, The Prince, and that is Niccolo Machiavelli. That is the Pope in the year 1499. That is Cesare Borgia. That is the King of France, Louis XII, and that is Caterina Sforza. And this is the castle that these 4 men pinned her down in, blew the walls out, and took her to prison. And she tried to poison the Pope with poison letters. So fascinating stuff from real life out of a book. But this is my version of fan art. I hate drawing things like Spider-Man. So when I do fan art, it's stupid.
It's gonna be horror. I love it.
Dark ass fan art. I love it.
So what's that?
It's dark ass fan art. I love it.
Yeah. So I mean, here's the kind of stuff I talk to people about at conventions. I'm like, this is like, I will lecture you on. This is the florin. Like, this is what I'm circling on right there. That is like the original big money Italian coin, and I actually had to draw the coins. Like, I could lecture you about the king's coat of arms. So like, I love to do this kind of crap. And then I love to lecture people at conventions, which part of my charm, love it or hate it, is I will lecture you about weird old things in my art.
That's good. It's a good hook in,
Because as I told you, I like the bizarre military details. This is This is exposing my shame to the world, right? So this is my newest. This is my newest poster on Etsy. I love doing HP Lovecraft based art, and this is
Johnny contributes to a Cthulhu anthology.
Yeah, I'm in Cthulhu, which is hard to spell. It's a kid-friendly series of Cthulhu books.
So this is my thoughts on the modern Air Force fighting an old one. So these are F-117A fighter bombers being knocked down by tentacles. And it's not based on any particular Lovecraft book, but it is very Lovecraft inspired. And it was incredibly horrible to draw this, and I hate looking at it now because all I can think of is the pain of drawing those damn planes, because they look cool, but don't ever try to draw one, kids. Don't do this at home.
That came out awesome, though.
Did come out awesome. It looks really cool.
And that's so you sell that on your Etsy store?
Yeah, that's my newest for sale print. Like I said, I have like 58 million things to put on there, but this is the last one.
Yeah, I'll have you give the link at the end so that people can check that out if they want to pick up. So is this another print? Wow, that's
so. This is another Lovecraft. This is based on Whisperer and the Darkness. So this is Henry Akeley fighting off the Migo, who are going to kidnap him and cut his brain out of his head. Right. So another weird. This is a Lovecraft short story, specifically based on the Whisperer and the Darkness, which is a pretty famous story that he did. It's a really creepy, like, body horror, kidnapping, alien invasion, conspiracy type story. And he's a farmer. And this is a scene that I imagine, because we know that he gets taken by these creatures, but they don't show it. Or like he's writing letters and telegraphs, and then this guy comes to see what's going on, and everything's okay. Mm-hmm. But they don't show in the book like where he's like, quote, taken.
Gotcha. Awesome.
So I kind of imagine this would be something like the scene where these things that are described as like fungus insects with tentacle heads, like they take this guy who's like a rural farmer. So
very cool, man. Very cool.
So this is one of the 7 covers from my satanic coloring book, right? This is volume 1, Rituals. So this is one of my I'm very well known. If you Google satanic stained glass, I've heard I'm #1 in Google. So yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
So I've been doing these satanic pieces for years now. And like I said, they're going to be a book this fall on Kickstarter. So this is like one of the covers from volume 1. Real exciting. I have some crazy guest artists, like the head of the International Satanic Temple, or he might be their spokesman. I forget the exact title, but Lucien Graves, he's had documentaries he's been in. He's in the news quite a bit. He's a friend. I think he has some of my art in his office right now. I've had art in the Satanic Temple's gift store. He did a page for Volume 2 Animals. Art Attack, who's one of my favorite satanic artists, gave us a pinup for this book. She did a Kawaii Satan. So this is one of the covers, which is yeah. I'm telling you, the satanic coloring book is going to to be a thing, man. So this is one. This is one of 7.
That? When are you launching?
Hopefully around Halloween. That's the plan.
Okay.
The book. The crazy thing is the book, like the volume 1 is like 44 pages, and volume 2 I think is like 40. We only need 2 more pages, and the whole thing. It's all done. It's all old artwork, so it's all done.
Freaking Harry. I love it, Harry.
What's his comment? I can't see it. Oh my God, what's he saying?
These coloring books should be for kids 666 and up.
Oh my God. So let's see what else have we got here. So let me zoom back out. Okay, so this is another cover. This is my satanic crest with like frogs from like the Book of Revelations and 666 and Roman numerals and goats and satanic imagery. This is if Satanists had a coat of arms, right? So I built that. And then my friend Danny is doing all the designs, and she laid out the cover and built the font. And getting the font for this book was like hell. No pun intended. It took us a month to get the fonts figured out because we were trying to find a cool font you could read. And that's a lot harder than you think. So, this book's going to be really exciting. I'm hoping to have a Kickstarter pre-launch link for it sooner than later so I can start, helping people. Hey, hype it up. Click on the button, Yep. But I think this project's going to be a big one. It's kind of a change of pace from the comic books. But I think it's going to be a fun change of pace. And I'm excited to kind of put it out there. So.
Awesome. Yeah, that looks great. So people should look for that in around October. And definitely if you're into that, definitely check it out. And then
hold on, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Let me go back out and go ahead.
Since we're almost at 90 minutes, so let's go ahead and start wrapping things up. I know the conversation
flew right by.
I know it did. Boom. So Jason, give us please share with the audience like where we can find you, like where you're most active and where can we buy your stuff.
So the place to buy stuff is go to Etsy. I'm Lenox with 1 N, Art Emporium on Etsy. Easy to find. Bam, look at that. Amy's birdhouse is on fire. Social media, I try to split time between Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. On Instagram and Twitter, I'm at Lenox Artist, which I believe is my handle here on the
I think I might have put it in the description as well of the video. So if anyone's
and then
don't want to write it down, just check the video later. It should be in there.
Carve it with
right in your
arm, right? And then on Facebook, I'm Jason Lenox Illustrator on Facebook. So I try to, keep those things. And you know how it is. It's weird. There's people that are only on Instagram, but they're not on Twitter or they're on Facebook. And,
I get that. I'm mostly on Twitter but I have everything else, so.
Yeah, and here's the thing. People say, why aren't you on this? Why aren't you on Clubhouse? And I'm just like, you hit a point where it's like I got those 3. It's enough. I can't be on more. It's too much.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's too much to manage. And like you said, you end up spending half your day promoting and not creating. So it's like, find that balance, How about you,
Yeah,
Johnny? Anything you want to shoot out there for everybody?
No, I just wanted to thank Jason for coming on tonight.
Thanks, John.
We really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your artwork with us, your comics with us, and with the world. Just keep on creating. Just on my personal note, the only other thing to note to happen to me this week is that I actually finally crossed Superbacker on Kickstarter.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
I don't know what it means, but I now have a badge on my Kickstarter profile. It says Superbacker.
Oh, Superbacker. That means you back probably a ton of stuff, right?
Yeah. So half of it is, the guests that come on. I'm getting exposed to all sorts of really awesome stuff, and it's helped elevate me to Superbacker. So I want to kind of thank the audience and thank creators out there who've come on to the show because you've helped raise me to the Superbacker status on Kickstarter.
Here's my thing. I have a badge that says creator. If you back a lot of stuff, does creator go away to become Superbacker? Is one more desired than the other?
That I couldn't tell you.
Johnny is working on his first Kickstarter.
I've never run a Kickstarter yet. I've been part of other Kickstarters, but I've never done my own yet. That's coming actually this July with Surrounded by Death. So,
so you haven't done. Okay, so that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see, Johnny, what that says after you do it.
Will Superbacker be erased to say creator?
Yeah, creator, maybe.
Who knows?
Possibly.
Yeah, who knows?
Or it'll make you make another account or something,
Yeah. Well, so that would be the downside because I have like 100+ things I've backed, right? So I would hope that when I launch 100+ campaigns would probably be notified, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, like most of them said are friends.
Hold on. No. So here's the thing. I don't think you backing them would send them a note, like unless they followed you.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. I got you there. I got you. Yeah,
right.
So the card needs to follow them.
What happens is if you back something and that person says another one, what I've noticed is they'll say, hey, John Smith launched another project. You might like it. So I think they've tried to get a little cagier on trying to cross promote.
Yeah.
I've made fun of Kickstarter directly. I've emailed them. I've zinged them on social media. I'm like, dude, and every year I'm like, so now I'm like, I've done 11 Kickstarters. I'm like, when are you going to make me a project you love?
Yeah, right.
I
don't know what the criteria is there for that.
What's that?
I said I don't know how their criteria is for that.
I can answer that.
Oh, you can. Okay.
I bug them. I'm like, how do you? They have staff meetings and people just said, I like Johnny's comic, and they'll say, great, it's a comic you love.
Oh, really? So that's as simple as that.
So you got to know somebody.
You either got to know someone or someone randomly just say, I just like what you're doing. So there is no stacking the deck. There is no.
So it's just somebody catches somebody's eye and then you're in.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. And then everybody, for me, I'm told that the new comics should be here this week, tomorrow or Friday, so I can finally start fulfilling my campaign. It's only 3 months late at this point, so
only 3 months.
Yeah,
late.
only. I know. I've been trying to keep all the backers up to date. It's one of those things, you didn't allow enough time for the project, so. But I am committed to getting it out to people. Check me out at recklesssidekick.com or, Mighty Mascots on Alterna Access. Definitely check it out there. That's it. Anybody have any final words before we sign off for this week?
Go support drunk anime creators from the late 80s.
Yes.
How about that? There's a message we can all get behind.
I was just gonna say next week's show is Jack Holder, who's just launched a Kickstarter on a Christian comic book. So I love that we have these alternating themes of a Satanist comic book one episode.
Think about this. Ask yourself in the Bible, how many people did the devil kill versus how many people did God kill? Check the body counts out.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to make that note for Jack.
Yeah, Johnny, write that down. Write that down. That'll be a question for next week.
Jason, you should come in and ask that as a question next week in the chat.
I can't wait to have the satanic, because I can't wait to argue with people, with some of my guest artists on appearances. I remember someone was like, well, God's probably, I don't know, God killed how many people when he did this and that. Sodom and Gomorrah, he burned 2 cities. Well, I'm like, well, no, I'm like, he kills people. He's wild. He kills people for like eating the wrong thing or like whatever. I'm like, did you go to Sunday school? Well, I'm like, if it makes you feel better, but I'm like, yeah, God, he carries a body count, man. Go read your Bible.
Yeah. Johnny, I think we should do that next week. That'll be hilarious.
Yeah, just ask him to tell. I mean, no, God wants people in line, right? Like, he remember in Egypt, he has the angel of death kill like every firstborn kid.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
there's some dark shit
in the Bible. Yeah, but that's dark. That's
yeah,
brutal.
it really is.
Yeah, no. So it's like it's great stuff. But the satanic stuff and the super religious people, it's really fun. I'm sure we'll tweak some of them off during the PR process.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe I'll get a protest.
Yeah, right.
Please come back for the future, Jason.
Yeah,
I
can't wait.
Definitely, Jason. Nice meeting you. Nice talking to you. And definitely.
Thanks, guys.
It's good seeing you. All right, everybody. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.